one of the greatest in-ring performers of all time, Bryan Danielson, has at least gone on record and said that he has wrestled his last full-time match as a competitor. He lost the AEW Championship this past Saturday to Jon Moxley. So we need to take time on our show to pay tribute to the one and only Bryan Danielson. And I'm going to throw to Andy first because I know Andy is probably one of the biggest Bryan Danielson fans that I know. He thinks he's top 3, if not the best worker of all time. Andy, I got news for you. He was trained by the best worker of all time. That's why he's good. Just going to throw that out there. But anyway, I'll give you the floor, man. What are some of your favorite memories of Daniel Bryan / Bryan Danielson throughout his career?
Oh man, there's so many to kind of look back through and see, which ones were my favorite and everything. He is such a gifted and just a talent that we're not used to seeing. His style, he's not the size of your typical wrestler, but that doesn't really keep him out of fights, and that doesn't really take away from anything at the same time. I think some of the moments that stick out to me, obviously, was him getting fired from WWE like 3 weeks in because he choked Justin Roberts with the tie. That's, to me, one of the funniest stories to hear about. I think also, like, you just kind of look at his teaming with Kane. I think that was something that should have absolutely never worked. And somehow it was the most entertaining thing in WWE during that year. Yes. His no movement to yes movement and that whole story of going into WrestleMania 30. I mean, you have to talk about that. It's just one of the greatest WrestleMania moments of all time, one of the greatest WrestleMania builds to all time. And so just seeing the things that he did. And then we were at your house that night that he debuted in AEW with Adam Cole, and just kind of flipped the script on a lot of people. And we saw a much different version than what we saw in WWE. But he was able to put on these matches with Okada and Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega and just some other young guys that he had been wanting to work with for a while. And, I have never seen a bad or mediocre Daniel Bryan match. And that says a lot because he's been in there with some guys who, one of my other favorite wrestlers of all time is Bray Wyatt. And I'll be the first to admit, the character of Bray Wyatt is awesome. When the bell rang, it wasn't that pretty sometimes. It wasn't the best. But his feud with The Fiend, like, that was where the best Fiend matches easily, by far. And so, they say about Shawn Michaels, you could throw a broom in there and he could wrestle it. I think the same is true with Daniel Bryan. You could throw a broom in there and he would put a 5-star match not even in the Tokyo Dome, right here in Nashville. And people would be crazy for it. So it's going to be weird not seeing him full time. But, whenever he does show up, it's going to be special and it's going to mean a lot.
Jared, I will throw to you, man. Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson. When you hear that name, what do you think of?
Yeah, probably WrestleMania, his big title win. That whole run that he had, like Andy was saying, the yes movement, the no movement. He's one of those wrestlers to me, man, that I definitely think if you're going to write down or in a book somewhere, people, the wrestlers that people could legitimately say are one of the best of all time. I think you definitely have to write his name in that book. The only thing that I will say, which might be a little bit risque of an opinion on him, is that you have wrestlers who it seems like they have it their entire career. Then you have other wrestlers who have it for a span in their career. And I definitely think Daniel Bryan was one of those that had it for a while. He captured that lightning in a bottle, but the lightning escaped him. He did not stay one of the big time guys like Shawn Michaels, for example. Even Steve Austin. You go back in their wrestling career, and they always kind of had that look, whether they were mid card, whether they were tag team, and then moving up to the main event. They always had that it factor, man. And I just don't think that Bryan had it for his whole career. So that would be my thoughts on him.
I agree. Like, the performer is always there. The talent is always there. Unfortunately, it's how you're used, and you can only
Yes.
control what you can control. And Bryan can only go out and have good matches. Well, the problem is if you're in there working with Zack Ryder or The Miz or whomever, that's really not going to do anything for you. So it's all about the position that you're in. And I think Andy, talking about the different things he was able to do in AEW, I think that was great for him. I thought that brought another side. It exposed more people to the pre-WWE Bryan Danielson that a lot of people didn't know about. Before he got to WWE, he was revered as one of the best in-ring competitors out there. And he probably lost some of that steam when he got there, especially when he got fired and had to work his way back in. And then all the injuries piled up on him and all that kind of stuff. But having said that, he did some cool things in AEW. But one of the things that I'll remember most is, Jared, you and I were in the building in the Superdome. The man had to retire in 2000 and Andy, help me out here. 2016? Did he retire?
16, 17?
16? He had to retire. That emotional speech in Seattle, we all remember it. But Jared, you and I were in the building for the return match. That entrance in New Orleans is something that I will absolutely never forget. We talk all the time about how awesome the Undertaker's entrance was that night, but listen, Daniel Bryan was a close second, if not better than the Undertaker, just because of the circumstances that it was under. And it was the same building when he won the world title. And 4 years later, he comes back, never thought he would wrestle again. Just an awesome, awesome moment to be part of. You know what's really cool? I don't know if you guys noticed this or not. Andy, you're a little more online digging than Jared is, so you may have seen this, so this may just be news to Jared. But you look back at Daniel Bryan / Bryan Danielson's last matches. His last Monday Night Raw match was against Seth Rollins. His last SmackDown match was Roman Reigns. And his last AEW match, Jon Moxley.
That's crazy.
Bookends the career of Bryan Danielson.
That's crazy, dude. But yeah, man, I mean, that time period, Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson, whatever, and the Shield, the members of the Shield, I mean, were those not the stars that ended up being the mega stars of today? I mean, it's kind of crazy to look back at.
Yeah, it really is, for sure. Definitely the mega stars, for sure. Of that era, and an era, Andy, where wrestling was down and Punk was on his way out and the Shield was trying to hold it together, and you rode the Yes movement and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, the cream rises to the top.
Yeah, it really does. And it's we don't really get organic builds, especially to WrestleMania, but that WrestleMania 30 build was just as organic as it could possibly be. The fans just wanting Daniel Bryan. He also, I mean, if we're going to talk about it, he also contributed to the worst night, I think, in WWE history, one of the worst nights in WWE history, at the Royal Rumble 2015 when he got eliminated. And the fans just absolutely crapped on the match the rest of the night. Like, Rey Mysterio returned and got booed out of the building. So he, his popularity at that point was so high and at such a demand that it changed the kind of course of wrestling history during that time period of forcing WWE to do things they probably didn't want to do, but they didn't really have a choice to do. And then, a couple years later, he turns it around when he, loses to Kofi Kingston at WrestleMania, and the kind of same storyline, he was just on the opposite side of it this time. Right. So just kind of seeing the things that he was able to accomplish was as spectacular to see. And, like I said, it's going to be hard. We're going to miss him full time, but whenever that music hits and he goes after Moxley again for one last match or whatever it is, it's going to be real special. I feel like
we know that he has to have neck surgery. We know that's going to happen before the end of the year. And then he has said that we'll address what happens after that. After that, we'll see if he's able to come back and get revenge or, what have you. But all that to say, congratulations to Bryan Danielson on an incredible full-time wrestling career. He's had some incredible matches, some incredible feuds, some incredible memories that we will not soon forget.